afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Livewire TV. If you're new here, I am super excited to have you here. Livewire TV is the place where we like to talk all about business strategies, marketing strategies, and mindset strategies to help you guys in business to get ahead and stay ahead of the game. Livewire TV is a part of Livewire Media, where we do corporate videography and video marketing. So essentially helping you to get the results that you're really looking for using the power of video. This week, I've got an amazing guest for you. She's a previous client of mine, and I've also done some work with her as well. I've done some work with her workshops. Jen Tiller. Jen is absolutely amazing at what she does. So Jen is a breathing coach now. I know you're probably thinking, a breathing coach? What's the breathing coach got to do with business? Well, let me tell you. Jen is super talented when it comes to understanding all about wellness and well-being, because she's been through some really tough times herself. And I'm not going to go too much into her backstory. I'll let her explain that for you guys. But she's massively turned her life around with the power of breathing, and therefore turned her business around as well. And now she helps business owners just like you step up their game when it comes to their inner wellness using the power of breathwork. And believe me, it is truly mind-blowing what she is about to share with you. So I'm about to bring her on. Jen, welcome to Livewire TV.
Always a delight to be in your presence, Rahini. Thank you. And welcome to everybody who's joining us now and later.
So Jen, tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do.
Wow, that's a long conversation, darling. I'm nearly 60. I've had a lot of time to do stuff. Okay, so I'm known as the breathing coach, but I'm also an NLP trainer, a hypnotherapist, a Reiki teacher, an author, a bunch of other things. But the reason I got into all of this was because I was born with, close to life-threatening illness.
Yeah.
I had savage asthma, chronic bronchitis for decades. And I grew up in a household with, shall we say, violence was a daily event.
Right. Okay.
So I was physically stressed and emotionally stressed growing up. And I thought that was normal. And yet I played piano since I was 4. And there's a lot of stresses on me at multiple levels. They thought I wanted to be a concert pianist. They didn't ask me if I liked to perform. The answer was no. Right. And I got married very young. I was 17. I got married and had a baby. And it meant I could leave home. I didn't choose to do that consciously, but that was my escape route. And I did it. And I have a beautiful daughter who is now an environmental scientist, so I'm very proud of her. And when we moved away, I discovered I was still sick. And I was a piano teacher for a while because I could do that from home because I was literally too sick to do anything
When
else.
you say you were sick, what do you mean by that? Like, what kind of sickness do you have?
Good point. Sorry, such a basic idea. Life-threatening asthma, chronic bronchitis, panic attacks. I was labeled allergic to the 20th century in the 80s. I spent a month in an allergy unit in hospital, and then I came home with like 16 foods I was allowed to eat.
Wow.
So my life was very, very narrow, very, very limited. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. And yet I was still a mum having to deal with day-to-day stuff. And I taught piano for nearly 20 years. But in my mid-30s, I came across somebody who said, you do realize that asthma isn't just that it causes bad breathing, right? Heavy, shallow, needing massive medication and so on, that your poor breathing causes the asthma with the airways closing down. It's a self-defense mechanism by the body. I had no idea about that. And I went from, I think I'm going to die tonight again, despite the steroids and the antibiotics and the sprays, and a doctor who was a family friend who hovered over me. He was such a caring bloke. And I was off all my meds and no wheeze in 4 weeks. It just changed my life utterly. I was in my mid-30s and suddenly my world changed. I was still a stressy person, and I had to train in all those other things, like I said, the hypnosis and NLP and stuff. But my world changed. I discovered that I could control my health to a massive degree that I had no idea was possible. And suddenly I could go for walks. Suddenly I could, laugh without having an asthma attack. I mean, those were things that my life was so limited. Yeah.
That must have been very, very hard to have your life so limited by doing everyday basic kind of things, right?
It was a constant. Yeah, literally everything I did could trigger an asthma attack.
Wow.
Just doing a load of washing or picking up my daughter could be enough to make my breathing bad and make me wheeze.
Wow.
And it was a constant thing, but that was my normal, remember, since early childhood. I had no perception that anything else was possible.
Right.
And yet I listened to this teacher. She was a physiotherapist who taught me. And it wasn't just a physical change, it was a mindset change. There was suddenly this, I can potentially do anything. I mean, the doors just opened up to the world. It was just the most phenomenal thing. And when I moved from Australia to England, I grew up in Sydney originally. When I moved to England, I decided that the piano teaching, I'd done that for 20 years. And although I love teaching, I'd done enough.
Yeah.
And I went out and I trained in all the things that had made me feel better, just for me to start with. And then I discovered there's a world full of people who needed what I knew, because I brought it together. People mostly do just breath work or just hypnosis or something like that. And I brought it together and realized there was a bit of a bridge missing between some of these things. And then I just changed the world by helping people who were like me, or over time I discovered it could be people who were just top athletes and who wanted to improve their breathing just a bit to get better results. There is no downside to better breathing. As I know I've told you before, Rohini, breathing is not a hobby.
Well, as far as I'm aware, we're planning to do it for the rest of our lives, right?
Definitely a good move, yeah. And better breathing will give you a longer life. For most people, genuinely.
What brought you from Sydney to the UK?
Second marriage, and we just thought we were going to be here for a short while. He had a job offer here, and we thought we'll just go.
Yeah.
Because by that stage I could breathe, and at least traveling was then a bit more of an option than it had ever been.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd give it a go. We're still here 20 years later.
Amazing.
And
guys, if you have any questions for Jen, drop them in the comment section below. We'll be sure to answer them for you. We'll be broadcasting live across Facebook, LinkedIn, and to YouTube, to a global network. And I would love to know where you're watching from. So do comment below. Jen, with everything that you just mentioned, I feel like we could take this interview in so many different directions. It's incredible. So, when you started to realize about the power of breath work and you started to use it for yourself, what was going through your mind at that point? Because surely a part of you would have been a bit skeptical, thinking, can breathing really do this for my life? Or was
it changed things changed things in the first few days.
Wow.
So I was going to stick with that. And equally, I didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
The doctor said, if you don't do something, the medication is not going to get you anywhere. You're going to be like this either forever or you will die. That was my doctor.
Wow.
So it was that, or I just would do anything that was possible. And then the science behind all of this fascinated me, and I love to learn. So when I was able to instead of just being told you should breathe like this, they told me you should breathe slower, because what does anybody do when they get a fright? What's the first thing we all do if you get a fright?
Yes, don't we?
Exactly. Yeah. We come up, we shallow breathe, we lock ourselves off, and we get a hit of cortisol and adrenaline and all that stuff. Now, remember, I grew up in a household where that level of fear and tension was normal. Right. So I'd spent my life breathing like that, learning to just let it go and breathe slower, use the right muscles. Yeah. Breathe through my nose, not my mouth, because mouth breathing, that's hyperventilation. What does anybody do if they blow up too many balloons? Same deal. But if you breathe lower and slower, you relax. It's amazing the difference it immediately makes. And having that shift, right, what's the opposite? For the folks at home, have a play with this. If you breathe in and hold, that's the fight or flight end of the breath cycle, right?
Yeah.
The opposite end, which is relaxing, is if you breathe out gently, preferably using your tummy muscles, and then rest the breath for just a second. What changes? Instantly.
When I did that at your workshop, the main thing that I noticed was my actual heartbeat slowed down, which is a good thing.
It's a wonderful thing. It means you're not under so much stress.
Exactly.
You know, and the mind quiets. Everybody has a slightly different response, but because you're going from fight or flight to the relaxation end of the system, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and the whole system settles and relaxes. The power in that is massive. And if you can do that as a habit, it'll have a knock-on effect in how well you think, how much energy you have, and how much less waste of energy there is in tension in your body. You don't need that. You want to use it for stuff you want to do, whether that's going for a walk or sleeping better. You want to be relaxed. It just works.
We've just had a really good question come in from Facebook from Umesh. He's just asked a really good question. Breathing and yoga, are they one of the same?
Well, they're related because breathing is, you do that everywhere. The yogic breathing has multiple options, right? And they have different purposes. So people will actually do rapid, heavy breathing for certain things. I'm looking at habits for life. So you can apply this to yoga, and I do teach yoga teachers this stuff, and you can apply it for sports or just being around your home or at the office. So it's breathing the appropriate amount for what you're doing. So low and slow at rest, low and a little faster at a walk. When I teach athletes and weightlifters and ballerinas, they're going to breathe more, but they're still going to be breathing from here and appropriately for what they're doing. They're still not going to be hyperventilating. So but yes, it's a really relevant question, the yogic thing. There's so many options, but if you only think about your breathing when you're in a seated lotus pose, don't get me wrong, that's a great concept, then you're missing an opportunity because you are always breathing.
What about in terms of mindfulness as well? Because a lot of people tend to associate breath work with sitting there and chanting Om, or just kind of focusing purely on your breathing. Well,
it's a starting point to because you want to create a habit. You've been breathing how you've been breathing your whole life up until now. So to change a habit, you do need to focus somewhat. But we're looking at how you focus on breathing, the biomechanics, for example, and just being the observer self on what you do and what it does to you. Is that good? Do you feel better when you do that, or do you feel worse? That's really the big thing. So breathing gently quiets the mind all by itself. You don't have to breathe in, breathe out, because you're going to do it anyway. Okay. But if you observe what you do breathing in and breathing out, you just notice how it feels and you slow it down a bit, you get a quieter mind. You know how we talk about busy brain?
Yeah.
That goes with hyperventilation. It goes with rapid breathing and rapid thoughts. It's a negative spiral.
Okay.
If you slow your breathing down, and especially if you occasionally put that pause after the out-breath in, it turns off the fight or flight and it turns off busy brain. Both halves of the brain talk to each other at a better level. Now, I actually use this one for if you've got a question and your brain just is lost.
Yeah.
If you ask that question as you breathe out, and then you rest the breath a moment and wait for the answer to show up, you'd be astonished how easy it is for your brain to access something useful. It might be an image that pops into your mind or a memory, or it might be a message like, oh, for goodness sake, woman, stop doing that. I get that one a lot. So if I'm doing too much and I'm too busy, my brain will just say, no, chill out, walk away, go and talk to so-and-so. It's very effective. Your brain works better. Weirdly enough, you get more oxygen uptake when you breathe slower. That's really the thing to recognize. Better oxygenation and a better mind. So if you want to think clearly and calmly around your business, you need to be breathing calmly as well, if you can.
Yeah.
And just find that peace that's waiting between every breath, and it's a shift. It's like a reset button on your brain as well as on your body.
Yeah. I mean, what are the main differences between sort of breathing from up here, your throat or your lungs, in comparison to breathing from down here, your diaphragm?
Well, the diaphragm is the muscle that actually opens and closes, which pulls air into the bottom of the lungs.
Yeah.
Because people think, oh, I'm expanding my chest, and they're doing this. All they're doing is waving their shoulders in the breeze, really, because the whole rib cage is just a solid block of bone. It doesn't expand. If you want the air to draw in, you've got to drop the diaphragm, and there's a vacuum around the lungs, and it expands the lungs because it drops. The air just falls into the lungs perfectly, effortlessly, and you get better oxygen uptake because the bottom third of the lungs has got most of the air sacs in it. So you want it low. But for that to drop, you've got your liver and your stomach and your, gallbladder and various other bits tucked up under there. To get it down, you've got to move things out the way. So that's literally expand a little as you breathe in and contract a little as you breathe out. And that's the belly bellows. It moves the air effortlessly. If you're breathing up here, you're using the shoulders in an attempt to draw air in. And it comes to it doesn't go as low, and you're losing, so you're getting less oxygen available. And because you're hyperventilating, you're losing too much CO2. Most people have no idea that carbon dioxide is needed to use the oxygen that comes in. You need a balance with all things. Most people are taught breathe in comes the good air, out goes the bad air. Well, to an extent, but you need the right balance all the time. So breathing low and slower, everything comes in balance. You get great oxygen uptake, more available energy, and way less tension. If that's the only message I get across today, just remember that, folks, please.
You mentioned before we went live on this interview that breathing in that particular way can actually increase the longevity of your life, which is pretty interesting, I thought.
Well, because you're less toxic in your system, your pH balance is better. That's the oxygen CO2 level thing. Less toxic. Your immune system is stronger. And if you've got a chronic condition, you're wasting a lot of your energy on dealing with the physical health. Whereas if you can be healthy consistently, your immune system is stronger, you're less likely to contract various illnesses. And this is clinically proven. I would not say it if it were not. But people who have stage 4 cancer, who've had the correct medical treatment, don't get me wrong, this is not an instead of, but if they've had their treatment, then they do good breathing consistently, the clinical trials have shown that they get a much better outcome generally for quite a high percentage of people. But it is always, you do what your doctor tells you, you give them that structure, but you want you think about what you eat 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You want to think how you breathe. Some people breathe 20 to 30,000 times a day. It's worth getting it right because it adds up. But if you breathe 40 to 50,000 times a day, like I used to when I was asthmatic, that's shortening the lifespan quite a lot because it's putting massive pressure on the system.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't live a long life for lots of things, but this just makes it easier to have a better life for longer.
Amazing. We have another question come in again from Facebook. So go. He said, "Do you set aside time each day for breathing and or encompass a daily routine?"
I used to in the early days, absolutely. When I was first learning this, I was focusing on it a lot. But I've been doing this now for 26 years, and it is my normal. But I check in occasionally, and of course, when I'm training and working with others, I have to be a good role model. So I make sure that I am. It's my normal. And it really, a healthy person, it should be their normal. So to start with, yes, practice, focus. There are things you can measure and things you can play with. But just check in.
Yeah.
When I breathe in, am I expanding my tummy and contracting it to breathe out? Or am I going up north into my shoulders? Simple things. Pay attention.
How long would you recommend practicing it on a daily basis in order for it to become the new normal for you?
Okay. When I'm working with clients, I normally see them 5 or 6 times over about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I suggest they would do 20 to 30 minutes a few times a day. I've got quite structured processes for which exercises they do, but the breathing changes habitually really, really quickly. And like I said, 4 weeks from meds to no meds for me, it can be very rapid.
Right.
And then it's just you just do it then a little less often. So it might be twice a day, and then it might be once a day. And then you just check in morning and night. It's because so you can apply these things if you change something. So if you're lying flat on your bed before you get up, just some lovely slow breathing. Set your mind calm to start your day. It might take 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Yeah. And then as you go to sleep, lie down and slow the breathing right down. Your mind will calm, your body will relax, and you can do that. But when I changed, when I add a new sporting activity, for example, I went back to horse riding.
Yeah.
I had to rework my breathing because rise and fall on a trotting horse was just, I forgot how to breathe. I had to think about it. It didn't take very long because I knew what I was doing. It's just adapting and adjusting.
Yeah.
But a few minutes, a couple of times a day, even if you have great breathing, is worth a little bit of focus time, me time, really.
Do you recommend changing your breathing for different activities? You
Always.
mentioned earlier that your breathing changes when you're sort of just sitting there, and then it changes when you're walking. How do you actively know how to breathe for different situations?
Well, your body should know all by itself. However, if you're tummy breathing and you're breathing comfortably, you don't feel like you're grabbing for air, you're good. But if you find yourself heavy mouth breathing, you need to back off and go more gently and revisit it. I teach this stuff to my clients, but the body should know. If you're breathing correctly from here as a habit, then you can apply this and adapt the principle to everything you do. You will breathe more if you're moving faster or you're lifting weights or you're dancing. You should. However, if your baseline is already breathing fast as if you were doing those things, then you can imagine how much heavier and faster you're going to be breathing by the time you do it. So get the basic stuff right first, low and slow at rest. And then, all right, here's the simplest indicator. What's the heaviest thing you lift every day, Rohini? You know this one.
Probably my computer.
Probably, but it's actually for most of us, it's our body weight. So if we standing up is usually the biggest shift we make most of the time. So most people, when they breathe in, be aware this is not what you should do, is they breathe in and lock off and might even push, pull, heave, and they take a big breath in, and that sets them up a bit tense to go and do anything else.
Yeah.
But remember that pause we talked about, the breathe out, rest the breath, which will bring the core muscles in and support your back, do beautiful things. If you breathe out doing that and then stand up in that pause, look at the difference in my body.
Yeah.
It's just smooth. It's easy. So it's about exploring ways to use better breathing. If you're struggling, back off. Come back to your center and find flow again, because we work better when we're in a flow state.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about how breathing can improve our mental health? Because there's obviously studies that have been done to show that when you breathe correctly, or when you practice some sort of mindfulness, your anxiety reduces, or your depression reduces as well. Can we talk a little bit about how the viewers can use breathing to manage all of that a little bit better?
Okay. Well, what we've been talking about is, doing that low belly breathing, which means you get more oxygen, better pH balance. And remember, if the in-breath is fight or flight, the far end of the out-breath literally turns that off. It does genuinely do that.
Right.
So, and if you can do it consistently, it stays a lot more turned off. So breathing out slowly turns off the fight or flight and turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms everything down. The mind quiets, the thoughts slow. And you've got, I don't know if the viewers have heard of this. Have you heard of the vagus nerve?
I have, but guys, let me know in the comments if you have or have not heard of the vagus
nerve. Let's assume that some of our viewers haven't. And the vagus nerve is part of the parasympathetic system, and it's the core, largest. It's a single one, but it breaks off into lots of things in our mid to upper body. When you breathe low and slow, you're massaging it gently. You're stimulating it in a positive way to send out messages to every part of you to calm you. It's available constantly. There are multiple ways to reach it, but this is one of the easiest, simplest ways. You breathe low and slow. You're massaging the vagus nerve. Oh, and your tummy, of course. So you get better digestion if you use the tummy muscles to breathe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, think about it. You're just a gentle breath in and out is going to massage your gut.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do, gently. The vagus nerve, though, is going to really give your body a series of messages that say, this is safer, this is better. And the system will quiet down. A lot of the muscle tension will just kind of let go. And that pause after the out-breath, if you can add that in at least occasionally, and after a while it becomes a habit like many other good things, breathing out gently, rest the breath, that combination is a reset button for peace and calm. And for me, discovering I could create that the first time was miracle territory.
Wow.
And that's the core of what I essentially teach, because we all need that ability. You make better decisions. You're not in fight or flight, so you're not likely, because remember I had panic attacks daily, multiple panic attacks. Anxiety was my daily life because I was frightened of my own body as well as the outside world, which could trigger the symptoms.
Yeah.
So I was living like that all the time. So to choose to breathe out, rest the breath, even now, because I'm paying attention to it, you can see the change in my face. It just settles. I'm excited to talk to you guys, but I'm also really relaxed about it, which is, believe me, I used to be so terrified of public speaking, I would run rather than do it. So, is that making sense, folks?
It's making sense to me, yeah. I mean, I think most people would rather die than do some sort of public speaking.
Okay. But in terms of the breathing improving mental health, it's just correct, healthy breathing. It isn't anything dramatic. It's not even yogic breathing or whatever. This is how healthy breathing looks. If you do it as a habit, you're just opening up all sorts of possibilities, because you're not wasting energy on tension. You're not in fight or flight, so you're going to be much healthier in the mind as well as the body. And you have choice when you can change it yourself. Now, I relied on Valium and goodness knows what for a while. And for me to know that I can choose my state, the power that gave me, and the empowerment for my clients is beautiful. I have a lot of people who have major medical issues that come to me. And like, I had a lady the other week who had to have a biopsy. She was scared about the potential outcome, but also scared about the experience. And just talking about it, you could see her do that. And I thought, well, when that injection goes in to take it, her muscles will be as tense as anything. So it's going to be more painful than it needs to be. Mm. So we worked on the breathe out, rest the breath. And she came back to me this morning and said it was easy. The results were safe and perfect. She got the results she was hoping for, which is beautiful. But her experience of it was calm. And she'd had lots of these things previously, and they weren't. It was hell for her. And that time it was more of a, it happened. We can cope with an enormous number of things when we have a choice of how we respond.
It's all about our mindset, really. And I've been reading about this quite a lot lately, about how when life hands you lemons,
make lemonade.
You can either make lemonade or you can moan about it. And I think with the power of breath work, you have the power to massively transform your life and therefore make incredible lemons out of it, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm a big fan of natural lemonade. This is a good choice. It is. It's just, what do we combine with the lemons to make lemonade? What's the sweetness in the world around us that actually makes it great? Yeah. Now, for me, I went through years of hell, which also had some good moments in them. Don't get me wrong. But they all taught me something, because I look for the lessons. I look for, what can I make of this? Where can I go with this? If I've got a big question, I go hunting for answers. I'm like you, Rohini. I like to find out stuff. And when I started to put it together and make sense of it, there were other things just showed up as, oh, well, that means this. I can do it differently there as well. I can play with that. I'm not perfect. I'm not an Olympic athlete. I'm not a ballerina. Believe me, I'm not. And but I can do a great deal more with more ease, because I apply a simple principle. Only breathe as much as I need to for the level of activity. Use the right muscles, because these are the design ones. If for anybody here who's got kids, healthy babies, we know breathe from the tummy. We know we've got a sick baby if they start breathing like that. This is still true as adults. Just to be very clear, tummy breathing is healthy. Low.
If you have any questions for Jen, do drop them in the comment section below, and we'll be sure to ask them for you. I have a quick question as well. Like, you just mentioned about the fact that babies sort of naturally, instinctively breathe from the stomach, and that's kind of the healthier way to do it, right?
Yeah, and puppies and kittens and all that.
Yeah. At what point does that change from breathing from the stomach to the chest? Because most human beings, we don't do that consciously. It's not like we just wake up one day and think, I'm just going to breathe more shallowly today.
No, we don't. That's the point. But remember what I said, the fight or flight.
Yeah.
If you're under stress, it might not be a dramatic thing. You know, for someone with trauma, it can be something that happens as it did for me. Yeah. But it can just be overall build up of stress over time. We just breathe a little shallower, a bit more often, until more and more that becomes normal. It's just a habit we build up over time. The wonderful thing is, it's just a habit. We can turn it around. You can unmake a lot of habits. And this one's easy because our body is really grateful when it goes back to the right thing. Small changes, people, small changes. Don't struggle against your body. When I first learned it, I learned it in a way that it did work in a lot of respects, but it was harsh. It was just push it until it's right.
Yeah.
But if you can breathe out, find that peace, and then just do more and more things in that peaceful space,
Yeah.
the body will adjust and adapt and feel safer and give you more opportunities to notice. And once you start doing that, if you catch yourself doing that, you'll notice it. And then you go, instead of telling yourself off,
Yeah.
please say, oh, good, I noticed. Now, what did that strange woman say I should do? Oh, yes, tummy.
It's learning something new like this. Is it time consuming and is it expensive?
Okay, there are lots of ways to access it.
Yeah.
A one-to-one session with me is, I'm an expert and it costs some money. On the other hand, you'll only need 5 or 6 sessions and practice in between. And most people, it's sorted because they've got a habit, they get a resource pack and so on. But it usually only takes a few weeks to make quite dramatic differences.
Wow.
Really dramatic. And then there's time, over time, it just gets better and better. It's a gradual improvement from there. But if you do some work early on and go gently with yourself, then your body will adjust and make it normal. It becomes, because we're designed to breathe like this, it's just about coming back to what we should be doing all along. And then it's up to you how you play it. Like I said, if you add a new sport or an activity, you might have to think about it some more. But if your basic breathing is good, you will be able to do that. Yeah. It isn't a drama, okay? It is just coming back to healthy breathing that your body wants, right? So it's not as hard as you would think. You can work one-to-one with me. I do run classes. These days, I have a goal. I know you know my dream, Rohini. I want to help 1 million people breathe better. And you have helped me reach more people in a couple of amazing times. However, I find that I can't do that one-to-one. And even in group classes, you don't get as much interaction.
Yeah.
But I can train therapists and health professionals, and I do train NHS staff. That's National Health Service for those of you who are outside of England. I do train people who can then just integrate simple techniques into what they do anyway, and share that with their clients and the people that they want to help. There's no downside to better breathing. There just isn't.
I don't think there is either. I mean, I imagine the thing that a lot of people are thinking right now is, and guys, if you have any questions for Jen, do drop them in the comment section below. But and I'm sort of speaking from my own experience here. Like when I first started hearing about what it is that you do, I was thinking, is it a bunch of woo-woo?
Like I said,
what's
the science is very solid.
Yeah.
There's loads of clinical evidence, certainly for things like turning off asthma. They did a 600-person clinical trial some years ago, and they got a 90+% reduction in symptoms and medication use. It's powerful stuff. And like I said, the vagus nerve, that is normal neuroscience. Go look it up, people, if you're not sure. And hyperventilation syndrome is really common. Now, this is an interesting one. With the whole COVID thing, post-COVID, some of my clients that have come to me since they had the bug, their doctors, their respiratory nurses said, you're still hyperventilating, you're still over-breathing, you must stop doing this because it's part, any long-term virus or whatever can have an impact like that, but COVID's particularly strong. But they are telling people to do it. So that's mainstream medical people who are saying, hyperventilation isn't particularly good for you. Please do your best to stop it. And it is just about going gently and learning to reconnect with your body and do it right. As your body has always wanted. This is not woo-woo territory. However, if you're in the woo-woo end of the world, if you're yogic, if you're like me, a Reiki person, if you're a healer of some sort, the physical science of it supports the emotional and the connection with that which is greater. You can always turn that into, that's quantum physics, go with that. If you prefer science words, use science words. It's the same territory. We are human beings having a larger experience and connecting with making the world better by starting with helping ourselves feel better.
Yeah.
Because when we do that, other people benefit. If we're stressed and we're cranky and that has a knock-on effect to the people around us. If we're calm and quiet and relaxed, it helps other people. And you too.
You tend to notice the people that are on a higher vibe, and you tend to just feel more positive around them, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I think because they are positive, generally positive people, and they have an expectation that possibilities are available everywhere and opportunities show up all the time. And when you do that, you trust the journey a lot more instead of fighting against things.
Have you always been a fairly sort of positive, optimistic kind of person?
No, not even remotely.
The life-threatening illnesses that you've had, you must have been incredibly terrified, skeptical, negative, woe is the world kind of thing, blaming yourself kind of thing, and then.
Oh, it's interesting. A mix of that, but some of it not at all. That was because I'd lived with that my whole life.
Yeah.
I was in a state of high anxiety and panic attacks as a constant thing, because that goes with the over breathing that goes with the asthma.
Yeah.
Because panic breathing is that, right? So that was just my normal. Anxiety was my normal. And I was frightened of the world. When the doctors tell you if you can smell something or you've eaten something not on your list, get to a hospital, you're terrified of the world and your own body very much. But at other levels, I knew I was considered a gifted student, let's put it that way. Like I said, I've playing piano since I was 4. I went to special schools for gifted kids, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So part of me knew I was capable of really quite amazing things. So I have that gift.
How did you tap into your zone of genius then to expand that and not live in fear or anxiety or?
Well, until I actually learned how to breathe properly, I didn't. Wow. My zone of genius was around music and writing, and equally I'm a photographer and an artist. I do stuff like that. Yeah. I've always done that since I was tiny. I was capable of writing and learning and teaching, for that matter. That was my underlying gift. But until I learned that it was safe to risk my body by being able to breathe properly, that fear did not go.
Right.
And it took time for me to overlap. But once I realized I had complete choice about how I breathed and how I felt.
Yeah.
And then I brought that in together with things like the hypnosis and other tools that I had learned. The package it was a constant positive spiral. But there was a long patch there where I was frightened because I didn't have anybody to bring it all together for me. I learned from different people, different things.
Yeah.
And what I try to do is bring it all together for my clients to help them. When I'm training therapists, it's like, how do you bring this together rather than seeing all this stuff as separate entities? Because it's exhausting. There's so much more fun to just go, oh, I can just bring that together with that. And it all just flows. It's just a delight. Yeah, I'm actually just looking at your symbol behind there, the image on there. That's so perfectly how I like to see things.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Jen, where can people connect with you and find out more about your awesome services?
Oh, good question. There's a gentiller.co.uk website. It is being updated at the moment, but at least it's there. And you can book a free breathing assessment session with me on there if you would like. And we can just chat from there. So that's probably the simplest solution.
I would massively recommend that you guys doing that, because I went to one of Jen's workshops a few weeks ago and it was massively transformational, because And I know this is going to sound really biased coming from me, but genuinely, it was really, really incredible. It's a really profound experience. It makes you more conscious of what's going on inside of your own body. And I think when you become consciously aware of what's going on inside of your own body, you raise your vibration and things just happen much more easily in your life. And at the end of the day, you're going to feel calmer after talking to Jen.
Thanks, Rohini. Yeah. And that is it. You know, when you have a choice about how you respond to something, because you notice if you do that, and you don't have to, you can at least begin to settle it down. You know, perfection is not required, but a change in the genuine direction you want to go is a huge help for all of us. We all need that. Thank you, Rohini. It was a delight to have you in the workshop, because you engage with things so consciously and with so much curiosity. You're just open to things. It's an absolute joy to have you around.
Oh. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Really appreciate all the shares, all the likes and the comments that you guys have been doing today. It's really, really kind of you. And if you've not shared this video already, please do share it, because you never know, this could impact somebody on your timeline, on your social media, and they could massively transform their life if you share this interview onto your newsfeed. So guys, please do share it, and do connect with Jen as well. She is absolutely incredible at what she does. You'll learn some amazing techniques and strategies from her as well, and do definitely book in a one-to-one with her as well. It's going to be well worth your time. Do join us next Thursday, 12 p.m. GMT time, right here on Livewire TV. We're going to be talking all about 3 incredible but super powerful mindset strategies that can transform your life. I cannot wait to see you there. See you there next Tuesday, 12 p.m. GMT time.